Good morning, everybody. It's the middle of November. Beautiful day. I'm here in the St. Louis area, and I want to tell you a little story about the Black Walnuts and my journey. It's not everything you need to know, but it's some pretty interesting facts that I thought was pretty cool. Most of the time in my area, there are so many of these trees, and people in the burbs they hate them. They're out there cussing them and carrying on while they're trying to get their yard work done for the wintertime. And a lot of these get thrown away, they get wasted. And I thought, well, it'd be a good idea to find out more about black walnuts. So these walnuts here, most of the time they'll be mostly green like this when they fall off the tree. And I think October is a good time when this happens. But just a few things. I thought, well, what are these good for? And I see people on Facebook or on YouTube or whatever, and they're talking about dehusking these, and they'll step on them, they'll run them over with their cars, they'll cut holes in a board and stomp them through. There's all kinds of different ways to do that. I just happen to have a chicken plucker that I kind of like to have a little use for it. I built my chicken plucker a few years ago, and I've got a flaw about being a farmer, a poultry farmer. All of these ducks and turkeys and chickens, they become my friends. So I probably needed to use my chicken plucker more than what I've been using. So I kind of got that idea. But let me revisit this. These walnuts, they are so much more than meet the eye. These walnuts have these neurotoxins or regular toxins. One is juglone. There are a couple others that are in this. And what this does is when this falls and starts decaying, when it falls on the ground, it is a self-preserving action. It keeps other trees, especially fruit trees. I understand that this juglone is very hard on these trees. Any kind of like tomato plants, if you decide you're going to haul these and use them for compost, you probably should really rethink it, because this has a lot of the toxins in this walnut. I think it's kind of neat. They are also used for medicinal purposes. They use the hulls. This has a naturally occurring iodine. Once these are broken down so far, you can start, when these are relatively brand new and falling off the tree, they're kind of just clear on the inside, but once you start processing and putting them through any kind of processing, I mean, they turn black really quick. And in this black is where that iodine is also. And in history, they say that the Native Americans, they would use these to paralyze and kill fish, and I guess a whole tribe of folks would throw them in the water somewhere and wait for the fish to die and come up and grab them, and it was very productive. Those folks they weren't sportsmen. They weren't out there with Zebco, and spider wire and stuff. They were doing this for a living. They were doing this to get ready. So they were looking for productive means of harvesting food. So with these walnuts come a little bit of toxins that would take care of fish. And back, like I said, there's a lot of it would use in the plants to kill plants. So it's a herbicide in its own self. Now, I don't think it does everything, but I think it does a lot of the fruitful type trees. They have used this over history for clothes dye, and they've used them for ink. They are messy. I mean, they are nasty. I will show you this right here. Let's talk about my chicken plucker for a while. This was a whiz bang style. Guy on Facebook or YouTube, he came up with this idea. It works excellent as a turkey chicken plucker. You have the fingers. Now, my turkey plucker's done many thousands of these black walnuts, and it looks pretty nasty, but it washes out pretty good. But everything that these black walnuts touch, I call that the mash. I guess the old moonshiner coming out of my family, I guess, but that's the only word I call it. When these hulls get all mashed up and torn up, they actually fall between this. You use a little water. And what I was doing there is I could get about 50 to 75 in here, have no problems doing it. But then I was reaching down and I was trying to get the nuts out. And, you know, you could only get like 3 or 4 or 5. If you got really lucky, you could get 6 black walnuts in your hand. And so it was kind of a hassle. So what I did is I put a port on the side of my chicken plucker. It's got a little port here, and then I can spin them out. So that turns out real good. Now in this process, when I put my black walnuts in here, if I use too big of a payload, if I put too many in, then my motor, that's a 1-horse, will pull too many amps, end up popping the circuit breaker or whatever. I tightened up the belt because I wanted less slippage, but I also realized that by tightening the belt, I pull more amps. And so I usually try to just dump, 50, 70 in there. I've done as many as 120 at a time, but it kind of makes you pay the price. Using that, I've got a lid here. When I start them up, I'll spray into this part of the lid. This is a side port. And then down here, I have another layer. Actually, it's just a big piece of plastic. It's about 1 inch thick, and when you're doing birds, it helps gather the feathers. It's just a really neat little deal that's happening with this. And I thought, well, shoot, I can use this dually. I can have a black walnut huller, and I can do this also. Now this thing it goes in 3 stages. When you throw them in there, you start it up, and it's relatively quiet. When they're like this and they're dried out, and I think there's no larvae in there for the flies that I was talking about, because it's dry, and I think they've already sucked most of the moisture out and became small flies and flew the coop. They got out of Dodge. So, but boy, them chickens now, I was kind of cautious about that because I know there's toxins in here, but the chickens seem to go by and get those little larvae worms deal, and it didn't seem to bother them, so I just let them go, let them keep working on them. But as this starts off, if they're moist, these black walnuts, then as it tumbles them through, it gets extremely loud. So I use ear protection, and then when it gets quiet again, I know that the black walnuts have been dehulled, and they're riding around this circle by centrifugal force, and then I can open this port, and they go right out into that pan. Also, you can see there's a couple floaters in there. So this is what they call a float test too. If it's floating, that means it's the kernel hasn't developed, there's air in there, or it's just completely a dud. So you want to get those out, because when you think about it, dehull them is not the hardest thing in the world, although it's messy. But when you start cracking black walnuts, that takes things to a different level. And all that walnut looks good, there's something wrong with it. So we're going to discard that right off the bat. We'll throw that over in the rejects, because we don't want to be at the nutcracker and going through all of that process and run into a bunch of bad ones. So we just get them out of the way right now, okay? So I'm gonna do, I'm trying to do this one hand. The wife is away visiting the grand monsters, and she didn't say it, but I don't think she wants any part of this. I think this is silliness to her, and actually, to tell you the truth, it's probably silliness to me too. I've probably made enough, hulled enough black walnuts for my family for, I don't know, maybe a couple generations. I have no idea. Why do I get on stuff like this? I don't know. You know, I went from looking and finding out about a few black walnuts, and then I went walnuts crazy. I get on Marketplace, people are giving them away, they're begging me to come pick them up. I do, and then I'm standing out here working on these, trying to, and I'll usually pour them, but I'm doing this one-handed. So let's do this. And let me get this started over here. Folks, this is so much fun, I can barely stand it. Here we go. Now that's a mess. So a lot of times, you know, you need to rinse these. And I see people really going through a lot, you know, pouring and going to different processes. Usually I put a lot more in there. I was just doing this for time. You can see that just absolutely did a great job getting these walnuts. Now people use pressure. They use pressure washers on these, and that works real good too. I've noticed that this does a really good job, and when these are dry, they have a pretty light color to them. All right. Let's do just a little bit of kicking them out here. Oh, sorry about that. Don't know what. I can pull these up. I use some of this air conditioning stuff, and with all of these that I've done, it's kind of getting loose, so I need to take a hammer, tap that down a little bit. But so I'll bump this a little bit. See, you're bumping it. It's pretty violent. Try not to tear everything up. This is a pretty tough machine. When you put a 25-pound turkey in here, it's pretty violent in its own self. So this is what I've found. This is the first big, well, you know, you got to gather, and then you got to dehull. You should let them dehull, let them dry for 2 to 4 weeks. When they get in long-term storage, from what I understand, they get real hard to crack. But you do want to have them at least a couple, 3-4 weeks to dry out. I think that kernel on the inside shrinks up a bit. When you do crack the black walnut, it seems like it makes a little bit of difference. Sometimes you even have to throw them in a bag, rehydrate them before you crack them. But at any rate, this is my story. This is what I found. Walnuts are a lot more than what meets the eye. The walnut trees are absolutely wonderful wood to use. They're used in all kinds of furniture and They're just beautiful. We had a storm come through here in June, and I'm not for sure how well these trees are going to do, but in my area it has been a bumper crop. So listen, everybody, thanks for watching, and if you decide to start saving some of these, now you know the squirrels eat these when people leave them on the ground, but the squirrels don't need them all, and there's still a lot of waste. So anyway, thanks for watching, and if you decide to start harvesting yourself, I'd like to hear about it. All right, thank you so much.